These are dark and troubled times, times where all have to stay home, to be alone. We have to cancel our holiday plans and we have to pray for our families and friends. It seems the whole wide world is out of control. It's a mess, the end of an era when we had the chance to discover the world and visit places far away from home. There we found friends and saw things that were strange and great. It's over. But now let me take you with me to a distant land that is completely inaccessible to any of us right now. And let me tell you some picturesque stories from another time and another place, Nepal, the kingdom of the Himalaya. Follow me and believe, one day we all get back the chance to fly and ride and found out how it where we not at home. No other city has more traffic, but at least it is nowhere more chaotic. The historic old town of Kathmandu is twice a day like a moped parking lot, over which trucks and cars are pushed, which are made out of respect for their size. An SUV costs 3 to 4 times as much as in the West, but thanks to rampant corruption in every construction project, there are enough people who can afford the latest models. The contrast to the ubiquitous dirt on the streets is all the greater. Even in the vicinity and in the sanctuaries of Bhaktapur and Pashupatinath, garbage piles up. The Hindu takes it easy, everything will be better in the next life. Even the Buddhist, for whom the Badnath Stupa is the most holy place, sees it calmly. A few prayer flags are tied around it, and the hopelessly ramshackle shopping district of Tamil and the bizarre street staring at pigeon droppings become an exotic place with tourists strolling in amazement. There is also a lot to be amazed at. Everywhere temples, all sorts of former royal palaces, carved wood, and tea shops. Red bricks and yellowed wood to the front, green mossy backyards behind, on the river behind the sanctuary Pashupatinath, which only Hindus are allowed to enter, the bodies of the newly deceased smoke. Whole family groups, at least the male part of them, accompany the dead on their last journey, which they begin in the middle of a pile of wood on the river bank. Smoke is in the air, monkeys rage over the bridges, bereaved people put on mourning clothes and the women of the family grumble from a barricaded balcony on the second floor. Between Pashupatinath, one of the most important Hindu temples and world cultural heritage, and the old town, an incessant chaos of people and construction work and traffic rages. The further you get into the city center, the denser the traffic becomes, and only in the narrow streets of the old town you feel like you have been transported back centuries. The people here are poor, but there are also ultra-modern office buildings. Century-old buildings and temple complexes are slowly crumbling apart, holy cows are standing over all of them, and from the temple complexes you can hear the songs of the believers again and again. It smells of smoke and past glory. There are beggars and monks, tourist rip-off artists and exchange offices. A strange, strange world. All around are brick houses with their communal courtyards and elaborately carved shutters. Tourists can live here, just like and with locals. And they do not have to do without modern conveniences. In Kathmandu, people have found a way to preserve their cultural heritage, modernize it and make a living from it. It is also worthwhile to go shopping here, at least to be amazed. Kathmandu is the capital of fake outdoor clothing. Jack Wolfskin has more outlets here than in all of Europe. Apart from that, a lot of tea is offered, prayer flags, and the essential t-shirts. Favorite the model with the 30, which is not 30, but an Om as in Om Mani Padme Hum. Whoever says Om instantly calls 3.3 million gods. But you can also put on a t-shirt as it hangs in the window of a shop. Or you can just order an omelette. Always with a view into the low clouds,
behind which the Gosane Kund chain and the Langtang Himal are supposed to be, we're gropes down the steep and slippery slopes to Padi Bonjiang at 1,750 meters. It is raining. And it rains. And it keeps on raining. The valley is not a destination, just a break. Every experienced hiker knows how mountains trick, always with the same trick. Everything little step you go up, you have to go back down. And vice versa. From down here it goes back up again, always the rain on your neck and the humid air under your rain jacket. Everyone is soaking wet, inside and out. It's not even unpleasant until the lunch break in Chipling at 2,150 meters. When you're wet, how can it go wetter, you know? Even drying tests under the canopy don't help. For lunch we have noodle soup, everything fresh, as always. Hurry up and sing with the great Johnny Cash, down in the valley, valley so low, hang your head over, hear the wind blow. After that short break the trail always runs north over the mostly forested ridge, and at the moment when everybody thinks we are almost there, another mountain opens up a new perspective, up there, and then we are there. There is hardly any talking during the steep ascent amidst herds of cows. But the landscape, which can finally be seen, seems indescribable. Endless. A horizon full of summits. Green and white. Behind the Dang Danda it begins to get foggy, and at the lodge in Kudumsang at 2,450 meters it is almost dark. Inside anyway. This one's called Tashi Dilak, and this means good wishes. Just outside the door metal parts of a plane wreck greets the fog. You're welcome. But lodges in Nepal follow the standard of Western barns. It is windy everywhere, the partition walls are made of crate boards, the lighting is electric, but of the strength of a candle. The damp troop squats in a tiny lounge around a smoldering oven, wet clothes hang everywhere on the ceiling and walls. But the food is fresh from the oven, and after the long journey it tastes great as every time when you have done your work for the day. The two men wash themselves thoroughly, they wrap themselves in white towels and then they bow several times. Family members bustle around them, raining flowers and banknotes. Then the whole company goes down to the river bank, where a strange task that is almost bizarre for Westerners awaits. Supported by professional combustion experts, a dear family member will be burned in front of everyone, amazed not only by walkers and temple visitors, but also by tourists holding handkerchiefs in front of their mouths so as not to breathe in what was just living people. We are in Pashupatinath, a small town a few kilometers east of the Nepalese capital Kathmandu. Here is a temple dedicated to Shiva, one of the highest Hindu gods. And here flows a river called Bagmati, which is at least as sacred to all Nepalese as the Indians to their Ganges. Anyone who sires in Nepal and can somehow afford it wants to be burned here and only here, because that is a sure guarantee for a next life in the lap of the gods. This tradition transforms the scenery on the step-shaped bank into a picture from hell. Right next to a two-story pagoda covered with gold-plated copper, in which stands a particularly important statue of Shiva, which only Hindus can see, whirls a life that is meant for the dead. Snack vendors offer food and drinks, wood vendors the material to burn the dead, others have flowers on offer or food for the pigeons armada, which counts after tens of thousands. Monkeys and brightly painted holy men are also waiting for a mild gift. They compete with vendors of counterfeit precious watches, sunscreen and towels that you can keep to your mouth when you approach the cremation sites that lie in thick smoke. It is the river of the dead that waits here. Stone platforms, called ghats, protrude into the water at several points. They are used for the ceremonies for which the name Pashupatinath stands, like no other in Nepal, for the cremation of the dead. It takes place as a solemn act, in the merciless rhythm of series production. First, a mountain of firewood is piled up on a ghat, then the mourning community approaches with the dead and a Brahmin who leads the ceremony. The group lines up by the water, prayers are said and finally the flames are lit, initially hidden by orange cloths that cover the body. There is a greasy, thick stench in the air that does not deter spectators. They are everywhere, on the balconies behind the groups and on the opposite side of the river. Locals picnic there as they watch as the next body is placed on yellow tajits chains, straw is added, and the dead man is finally put down. His body is becoming dust that goes into your lungs. As in other predominantly Hindu areas such as India or Bali, it is a tradition in Nepal to publicly burn the deceased. Before that, the dead man is cleaned, anointed, and wrapped in towels. The relatives previously immerse them in holy water. The physically and mentally cleansed person is placed with his head facing south. The god of death Yama is believed to be there. Before the wood ignites, the dead man's feet must be cleaned with holy water. Since the Bagmati River flows in the Ganges, it is considered suitable for this purpose by the Hindus in Nepal. If you look at the water, you automatically have doubts, because it is brown and dirty, a broth that nobody would want to get close to voluntarily. A mistake. Young people from the area find their source of income directly at the foot of the incineration platforms. As soon as a dead person is completely burned, his remains are pushed into the water with a broom. There, the children and adolescents are already eagerly waiting for their next chance to fish gold teeth or silver rings that were not taken from the dead before the cremation. To do this, the hunters of the lost treasures repeatedly dive into the floods of ashes, sewage, and remains of bones, so that those who watch them need strong nerves. Another Nepal morning. From the place in front of the lodge one can guess the further distance. Once down and up again, then once past the mountain, then up again, down again, and up again. Somewhere there Therapati is supposed to be, one can see a few roofs from a distance, that's all. The ridge running from north to south and to Therapati forms the watershed between the Indrayati in the east and the Trisuli in the west, our guide Udaya says. What about Indrayati? What Trisuli? Well, the Indrayati is a right tributary of the Sunkosi, which runs on the southern slope of a mountain range that closes the river valley of the Langtang Kola to the south. The source of the river is located within the Langtang National Park, whose glaciers feed the river. The river Trisuli, on the other hand, comes down from China, or more precisely from Tibet, where it has its source in the highlands and then flows south through the main Himalayan ridge. The breakthrough valley can be guessed but not seen, because the mountain massifs of Langtang Himal in the east and Ganesh Himal in the west rise up to the sky. Man here is a tiny dwarf, wandering disorientated between giants. The paths are well laid out, the air is clear as at the sea. The forest here consists of redwood, and the red panda are said to live in it. If we don't see them, says Udaya, a second chance will come. There are some in the zoo in the German town Hanover, picture. But we got lucky, a Russian couple comes towards us, they have just seen a panda. Hurry hurry, fast, fast, but quiet. Really? But at the spot the Russian guys marked, the beast is no longer there. Red pandas are very rare and very shy animals, says Udaya. Only very rarely do tourists manage to see one of the cat bears that feed on bamboo. But you can see lots of rhododendron trees that bloom in spring and never run away. We are now in Sherpa land, which is replacing the Tamang settlements. Officially the people here are not allowed to call themselves Sherpas, because the Kumbhus Sherpa in Nepal claim this name exclusive for themselves. Therefore, the people here have given themselves the name Lama to emphasize that Helambu and Yamo are ancient tribal regions of Tibetan Buddhism. This cannot be overlooked when wandering through, as countless sites here are dedicated to the work of the saint and magician Padmasambhava, who brought Buddhism to Tibet in the 8th century. But old traditions here are also a big problem. For example, the custom of exchanging one's daughters for new roofs of your hut, the bridegroom gets the girl, the father of the bride gets a new tin roof. Once you know this, you will have a completely different view of the stone huts in the small villages, almost all of which have been newly roofed. Sometimes the bride was beautiful enough for even a small solar electric system that shines in the morning sun. The Pangdo Pass near Manjengoth at 3,200 meters is then climbed again in pouring rain. In the midday Logic guitar is lying around, but it has only 4 strings. After the first tuning attempt there are only 3 more. The host is not angry. A tourist left this thing behind, a few years ago already. Nobody knows how to play it, he say. In the afternoon we go downhill and then uphill again, because the daily destination Thayarpati is at 3.500 meters. In principle, the ridge of the Yangri Danda with the holy mountain Ama Yangri at 3,771 meters you could see from here. But it is foggy and it gets dark quickly. For dinner at the smoking oven fire we have tomato soup out of a bag, which tastes like garlic. The price for a bottle of Everest has risen to 400 rupees. The transport routes to this place are just long and the streets are rough. A new morning just under the sky of Thayarpati. The high altitude air is humid as always, the clouds hang low, but what is actually high here? We're at 3.700 meters without noticing it. Those who ascend to the Himalaya often get problems with altitude sickness. But those who walk slowly, not always upwards, so that in between also repeatedly down, can avoid these danger to a large extent. After breakfast in the cold lounge, surrounded by the cold smell of the extinguished iron stove, we go up the mountain right behind the lodge. And then down again. Fog and rain accompany the hiking train, hardly ever other hikers come towards us or overtake us. For the children in the few houses along the way we are an event, so rare that they don't even unwrap the sweets I give them before they put them in their mouth. After the grass-covered ridge of hills there is forest again, and on top of the forest there is a stunning trail again, which leads up to the high alpine pasture of Gopt at 3,450 meters. This is not the end of the trail, to Dubachor it goes up another 100 meters. Nevertheless, a comparatively short day, because there is no lodge closer to the pass. Meanwhile, leeches are appearing more and more often, whose trickery in penetrating the clothing knows no bounds. The little animals are about the size of a match and they move around like a Romanian gymnast, up front, stuck in the back, making a bridge and so on. When they make it to the skin, they bite, almost imperceptibly. The body volume then inflates 3 or 4 times. These vampires are a nightmare. Every few minutes we have an alarm of one member of the group who has one of these strange animals on his skin. The removal becomes a bloody affair, but, say the local experts, there is no danger, they really just want to suck and carry no viruses or pathogens. Nevertheless, every discovery of every leech is good for great excitement, everything peeps along your own body, everything shakes and searches. The day's destination is Fedai, a place in the fog that cannot be recommended to beach holiday makers. 3,650 meters high and zero view. The prayer flags at the stupa in front of the house hang sadly. In front of the lodge there are also some ruins of an Italian jet that crashed here a few years ago. A macabre memorial that makes you happy to still have your feet on the ground. Another day at the Himalaya, another day to go, and this means going. Once around a walk the hut, we can stumble on a narrow path to the top. It is still dark, we started so early, even the trousers are still wet from yesterday's walk. It takes about 4 hours to get to the Lorbina Pass at 4,610 meters, which the locals call Surya La. The ascent is arduous and views are hardly possible because of the humid air. Some hikers pant because of the altitude, others complain of headaches. Our two Sherpas guide Udaya and Surdhar Kumar, however, hike as if they were going to the bakery. The opened umbrellas suggest this association. For the two small men this is rather a walk on the beach, they are used to the height, to the weather anyway, they know the landscape as well. Where others have heavy breath, they whistle a song. With increasing height it gets windier and windier, without the fog was blown away. Only at the pass summit, which marks the border between Helambu and Langtang National Park, the sky opens up. If the weather was good we would now even see Annapurna, Manaslu, Ganesh, and Langtang Himal, all these giants. But today it snows a few sparse flakes, and on the high pass Surya La, which is not located directly at the pass but a few meters next to it, the cheering is great. First summit. 4,604 meters. For half an hour we enjoy the triumph of having climbed from underneath through all the valleys and over all the ridges to here. In a lodge that looks half abandoned, half as if it is still being built, we have tea, like every time not real tea, but ginger root in hot water. This is considered by the locals as the best precaution against colds, altitude sickness, and exhaustion. Afterwards, an endless descent follows up to the Gosain Kund Lakes at 4.380 meters, where we arrive completely exhausted. Thanks, Ingwer. During the full moon festival in July/August, thousands of pilgrims are said to bathe in the holy water here and offer puja to Shiva, the god of destruction and renewal. Puja is a kind of sacrifice, some paper money, lights, flowers, something else. It is like a prayer that's left at holy places. Today nobody is here, only the sun is slowly coming out. The landscape is breathtaking, a bit closer to the sky and a sight like paradise. The path becomes flatter and wider behind Kalang Pati Danda. Now we are also on a beach walk, luckily. We can even talk to each other again now. After almost 8 hours we reach Lorbina Yak at 3,900 meters. Yesterday it was up, today it is down. The lodge is called again, and as always something with view, because views are always around everything. There is soup again tonight and chia patty to go with it, those flat pita, not puja, bread that always taste a bit like oven ash. Strange, according to the persistent taste, the cook apparently travels with us, but during the day we never see him. The path from Chanlang Pati to Thulasibru now is like a walk in the park now. It no longer rains, instead the sun shines. And it goes downhill almost the whole day. In Kalang Pati at 3,580 meters, we can get cheese from its state cheese factory, who are tasting great. At least for those who didn't look into the production rooms before the first bite. The manufacturing hall looks like a dark cave who hasn't seen a broom or rag since ages. Just a few kilometers away at a lodge on a hill there is the highest telephone box in the world, built of a wooden frame and a plastic tarpaulin. The satellite phone inside is really ringing straight at the moment we pass the box. Technical wonders, wonders of nature. The path now leads steadily along a mountain slope, uphill, without steep. A tour like through a German low mountain range in spring. The air is clear, the sky is wide. Every now and then a small village appears along the way, where only few people live. They have a life like 100 years ago, in roughly stacked stone huts without chimneys. The smoke from the open fires that burn inside to cook and to heat the room is supposed to escape through gaps left under the roof. Our guide, Udaya Sharma, tells us about the dangers this entails. In almost all rural households in Nepal today, cooking is still done with open fire directly in the living room. Living room means the one and only room they have. The room fills up with the acrid smoke of the fire, and especially the women who sit in front of the stove all day long suffer from constant irritation of the eyes and have to struggle with long-term lung damages like asthma and lung cancer. It would be easy and by no means expensive to remedy this. But far away in the West, where the technology and the money would be available, politicians and authorities prefer to concentrate on constantly optimizing the pollutant emissions of their own combustion plants through stricter requirements and new regulations that reduce the pollution in the per mil range and needs complex technology. Here could simple remedial measures do so much more, because they could saving or prolonging lives. But Nepal is wide away and some small private initiatives are all the modern world do to help. It is precisely because the surrounding nature is so indescribably impressive that poverty stands out. We hike through tropical vegetation, admire birds, and monkeys and butterflies. All around are towering snow-covered mountain landscapes, and we have occasionally to avoid the passing yak caravans, which here replace rail and bus. In contrast to the Kumbhu region around Everest and the routes to Annapurna Base Camp, the Langtang Valley is not only not overcrowded but almost empty. Tourists are hardly to be seen on the hiking trail, which always leads clearly along the river, because compared to the tourist hotspots of Nepal, the Langtang National Park is almost undiscovered until today. The atmosphere is relaxed, the giant mountains of the Himalaya all around are beaming. After another long descent, we pass an army compound, where tired, bored recruits are looking to us. To the village of Thulasibru at 2,200 m it is only a short walk now. Here the locals have resolved enough room for terrace fields and a place that nearly looks like a city midst the actually hostile environment. The oldest ones of the houses, mostly built of wood and stone, have lovingly carved balconies, worn down by centuries of harsh weather, but can still be seen in all their former beauty. Thanks to an early arrival at the Peace Lodge, the first Everest beer can be enjoyed outside in the bright afternoon sun, with views of the Langtang Mountains and the Ganesh Himal. In this beautiful village there is a Gompa, a Tibetan monastery, according to the travel description. Above all, there is an internet cafe, which is closed but opens immediately when customers knock the wooden door. Deep down in cellars that look like a vegetable crate warehouse, there is access to the world outside. In the evening, momos, a kind of dumpling with vegetable filling. Looks like the chef's teeth marks, one of our guys blasphemes. It is the old game that is played again and again when hiking in the mountains. You climb up, as high as possible. And as soon as you are happy to be at the top, you go down again. The mountain is not the goal, at least not the one summit you are on. It's always the next one, the one behind it, the one that can be seen somewhere on the horizon. We have to go from Thulasibra via Bamboo Lodge to Rimj today. So also we go down, out of the almost city where we spent the night, down into the valley. Because here the Helumvia Valley cuts the valley of the Langtang, so to speak. In order to get from one to the other, the river has to be overcome, and this is only possible at the very bottom, where a suspension bridge is waiting. Through the village, which has partly new chic houses and partly old cottages, the way down to 2,000 meters is very steep. Fortunately, the side facing away from the sun follows, because in the meantime it has become really warm. Behind the bridge up again, then a really steep descent follows into the Langtang Gorge to the valley floor at 1,700 meters. The path first leads downhill through a dense forest to the riverbed of the Langtang Kola. Afterwards the path climbs slightly through humid and mossy forests. At the rock face opposite the river we admire the huge nests of wild bees, built in fantastic rock walls. Afterwards we reach the small village Bamboo. There some tea houses invite us to rest. In Bamboo Lodge at 1.950 meters we have tea again. We can sit outside and listen to the deafening noise of the water masses. During lunch we admire monkeys playing or whatever monkeys do when they romp through the treetops. From here on the trail follows the river valley, only interrupted by a total descent downhill due to the landscape conditions. Further up through dense forest, at 2,150 meters the next wavering suspension bridge, where now all wanderers the missing screws counting. But the fragile bridge stops and on the northern bank of the Langtang Kola we continue uphill through mixed forest, now and then overtaken by an English woman who decided to ride up into the mountains because of an allegedly broken foot. Rimjdanda at 2,450 meters comes later than expected, but still early enough to sit in the sun and drink beer on the steps in front of the lodge. All around, marijuana blooms in huge perennials. Some hikers stay right here and stop walking. Hashish and marijuana are almost commonplace between Kathmandu and the border to India, with Hinduism playing a role. This religion is known to be quite strange with the sadhus and everything, and it cultivates a relaxed approach to cannabis. While in the capital, especially at Pashupati, the temple in the center, not only corpse fires smoke, but also wafts of grass waft through the air. All of this however only tolerated and by no means officially allowed. Up here in nature nobody cares who smokes what when. All around here grows hemp, the variety that can be smoked. In Nepal this isn't allowed. And it has never been forbidden. But we prefer to drink. No Everest this time, but Spanish St. Miguel, which according to the imprint comes from the Philippines. Globalized world. It's 500 now. From now on it's all the way uphill from Gortabella to Langtang. No, we haven't heard anything about Europe and the rest of the world for days, because here are no news sources anyway. But uphill there is no other way. Since the ascent is quite steep, the mountain forests soon end. We bath in sweat. But just before Gortabella at 3,000 meters, the gorge widens into a high valley, where the lush pastures and few arable land remind us of the German landscape in Mecklenburg at the Baltic Sea. The surface is flat until the horizon. The way on we wander is wide like a German highway without asphalt, indeed. On the way, a spectacular view of Mount Langtang Lirung opens up, a peak that rises a breathtaking 7,246 meters into the clear blue sky. The grass is green all around, the air doesn't seem so thin anymore. We continue our hike to the village of Langtang, an almost picturesque Tibetan-style village situated in a hollow at the foot of the snow-covered Mount Langtang Lirung. Those who have not been here before do not know what nature really can do. If the plateau looks like a stupid normal piece of land somewhere, the mountains all around make it a spectacular sight for the eyes. It goes with the fact that they sell sea buckthorn juice here from their own harvest. Supposedly it sharpens the eye. There is also yogurt made from the milk of the shaggy mountains of meat, which are used here as work animals for everything. This stuff tastes like the yogurt without taste from the supermarket. Only a little more expensive. As a customer, you have to be able to afford regional economy even here. At noon we land at Yangshib. There is tea and soup under bright sunshine, and for the first time we see Tsurgo Ri, our summit destination. A rocky outcrop that reminds us of a spoil heap in a mining area. Behind another army base with a crew, whose faces are marked by the senselessness of their entire existence, we walk steadily uphill through light bushes, past a long mana wall and over rough and smooth to Langtang at 3,350 meters. The formerly existing internet cafe here has closed due to lack of demand, but the Japanese have helped a man on the outskirts of the village to open a German bakery. Globalization is a completely crazy thing, because besides American cola there is Dutch beer everywhere. Sometimes it comes from an Indian brewery. That's what the German bread from Nepal is for. The conditor got it. His bread, rolls, and apple pie looks fantastic, but it still needs to work on the taste. Nevertheless, best food since Kathmandu. In the lodge in the evening, a bottle of Spanish red wine is discovered on the beer shelf. Spontaneous purchase without regrets. The little juice is already on the verge of tipping over into its second existence as vinegar. But under the conditions here it is a real miracle of perfect taste. The hotel has adventurously built the toilets behind the house. With temperatures near the freezing point, as it is the case here at night, this is once again a special highlight of a hiking tour rich in experiences, under the starry sky, stumbling over the gravelled ground and looking for the little place. Up is the new down, soluble coffee the new gingerdia and St. Miguel beer the new Everest beer. Today we have to walk from Langtang to Kiangjingampa, the where our summit storm should start. Under bright sunshine, we leave Langtang and head back on our feet out onto the plateau, past magnificent-looking water treatment plants, next to which in Germany there would inevitably be a sign pointing to EU funding. Here it is missing and the plant at the edge of the village does not work at all. But it looks like good engineering. Along an endless Mani wall then the way goes up very slowly. This time the mission is only 3 hours long. Then we are in Kiangjingampa and at an altitude of 3.800 meters. For us, who have been walking for more than a week now, what feels like a year, this is actually just a walk. Along beautiful mountain meadows we walk over even more mountain meadows. Now and then a house appears, then a Mani stone, a shepherd's hut and a few prayer flags in the neighborhood. Prayer stones are piled up to hold towers. The stone carving industry must be booming here, but it must be, because apart from carving Mani stones, herding animals, and hauling wood there is not much work in this region, because this dream paths under prayer flags are still largely forgotten by tourism. Right next to the lodge is the imaginative peak called Kiangjinli, which is scheduled for the afternoon as a test for the big mountain run tomorrow at the morning. The summit does not look very impressive. The people in the village call it the local mountain. For us he looks high enough. Down in the village, which actually only exists because trekkers like to rest here at the end of the valley before they climb the next mountain and then turn around and go back home, there is not much going on. The final part of the Langtang Valley is a kind of an end of the world. Lee sing a little bit Jim Morrison, This is the end, my only friend, the end of our elaborate plans, the end of everything that stands, the end. From here you can see for the first time that the valley owes its shape mainly to the glaciers of the last ice age, which dredged out the whole mighty area. In its upper part, the bottom of the valley is flat and enables pleasant hiking. The mountains are at the left and right side and in front, where it is not possible to continue. But it is still possible to get close to some glacier tongues that have deeply cut into side valleys and mountain flanks without any problem. A Buddhist prayer room and an old cheese plant set up on a Swiss initiative are the two sites, along with intrusive mules and large rocks where yak droppings are dried for the evening fire. After the midday rest, the tour starts, steeply up to the higher of the two Kiangjin peaks, which should be reached in a tight hour. But the way is more exhausting than expected. We climb endless serpentines on the right flank of the mountain straight up. Suddenly we notice the altitude of well over 4.000 m in our lungs, despite the many days of acclimatization. We constantly have to take breaks in order to catch our breath. Air. At the top, stone pyramids and prayer flags fluttering in the wind, deep down the lodge, in front of which the lazy part of the group is sitting in the sun. We lie in each other's arms, very happy. From 4.300 meters we see the glacier next door, a bunch of 6,000 meter peaks and the main Langtang peaks, but also the Tsurgo Arai. It is an icy morning, but behind the peaks a blinding sun is already shining, conjuring a halo to the mountain next door. In the usual hiking queue the troop, led by Sardar Kumar, shuffled towards the mountain flank, where the entrance to the summit of Tsurgo Ri is said to be. Endlessly a scree field under the dawn sky stretches along. We stomp through the semi-darkness shadows of the disappearing night, still completely uncertain about what this day will bring. From 3.900 meters altitude we have to climb 1.100 meters up to the top, a very exhausting affair. Tsurgo Ri. Ri is the name of all the mountains here, because Ri means mountain, is 4.984 meters high, just under 5.000 meters, but even the toughest hikers, who at the beginning push the pace and complain between two heavy air breaths that they believe they are actually fit enough to take a 6,000 meter peak under their boots easily, shuffle sluggishly through dust and stone at some point like we're all doing. A few horses are better climber, like mountain goats they are climbing the hill. The summit itself can only be seen from below at times, if you put your head back into your neck, and shortly before the finish there is even a special chicane in the form of a climbing route that consists only of loosely lying boulders. Also the other 8,000ers around the Langtang Himal, all of them beautiful peaks, cannot be seen now. Shisha Pangma with its 8.027 meters is located at the northern edge of the area and cannot be seen from the main valley of the Langtang or from Tsurgo Ri. We have to climb Ganjalot or Nyakanga in the mountain range south of the Langtang Valley to see the lowest of the 14 8,000ers. But this is even harder than this tour here, where it becomes more and more clear that the Tsurgo Ri really was formed by a huge landslide that is said to have taken place about 40.000 years ago. There are no rocks under our feet but only loose scree, loose stones, broadly trotted on the places that are considered as a path here. Stoically trotting, we move upwards until about 250 meters below the summit a valley basin can be seen, through which we continue in slow serpentines to the summit ridge. Now it gets really steep again, but the summit is now even visible for a short time. But then there are only 200 meters left, meadow-like covered with lichens. Yes, it has grass here. Finally, with last strength to the summit goal, a place full of prayer flags and former prayer flags and ruins of prayer flags from the Middle Age. Relieved hugs and shining faces even of the Sherpas and porters who had joined us, who could walk this distance for once as an exception without load. Sweet snacks under the prayer flags, amazed at the sky-high mountains that form the border to Chinese Tibet. Just over there is the border, a wall like in Game of Thrones, but not made of ice, but of rocks and glaciers. No, says Sherpa Hari Badar Tamang, this border is not guarded. No soldiers there. What should they do there, where the end is ending and the heaven is the only border? Up is the new down, soluble coffee the new gingerdia and St. Miguel beer the new Everest beer. Today we have to walk from Langtang to Kiangjingampa, the where our summit storm should start. Under bright sunshine, we leave Langtang and head back on our feet out onto the plateau, past magnificent-looking water treatment plants, next to which in Germany there would inevitably be a sign pointing to EU funding. Here it is missing and the plant at the edge of the village does not work at all. But it looks like good engineering. Along an endless Mani wall then the way goes up very slowly, this time the mission is only 3 hours long, then we are in Kiangjingampa and at an altitude of 3.800 meters. For us, who have been walking for more than a week now, what feels like a year, this is actually just a walk. Along beautiful mountain meadows we walk over even more mountain meadows, now and then a house appears, then a Mani stone, a shepherd's hut and a few prayer flags in the neighborhood. Prayer stones are piled up to hold towers. The stone carving industry must be booming here, but it must be, because apart from carving Mani stones, herding animals, and hauling wood there is not much work in this region, because this dream paths under prayer flags are still largely forgotten by tourism. Right next to the lodge is the imaginative peak called Kiangjinli, which is scheduled for the afternoon as a test for the big mountain run tomorrow at the morning. The summit does not look very impressive, the people in the village call it the local mountain. For us he looks high enough. Down in the village, which actually only exists because trekkers like to rest here at the end of the valley before they climb the next mountain and then turn around and go back home, there is not much going on. The final part of the Langtang Valley is a kind of an end of the world. Lee sing a little bit Jim Morrison, this is the end, my only friend, the end of our elaborate plans, the end of everything that stands, the end. From here you can see for the first time that the valley owes its shape mainly to the glaciers of the last ice age, which dredged out the whole mighty area. In its upper part, the bottom of the valley is flat and enables pleasant hiking, the mountains are at the left and right side and in front, where it is not possible to continue. But it is still possible to get close to some glacier tongues that have deeply cut into side valleys and mountain flanks without any problem. A Buddhist prayer room and an old cheese plant set up on a Swiss initiative are the two sites, along with intrusive mules and large rocks where yak droppings are dried for the evening fire. After the midday rest, the tour starts, steeply up to the higher of the two Kiangjin peaks, which should be reached in a tight hour. But the way is more exhausting than expected. We climb endless serpentines on the right flank of the mountain straight up. Suddenly we notice the altitude of well over 4.000 m in our lungs, despite the many days of acclimatization. We constantly have to take breaks in order to catch our breath. Air. At the top stone pyramids and prayer flags fluttering in the wind, deep down the lodge, in front of which the lazy part of the group is sitting in the sun. We lie in each other's arms, very happy. From 4.300 meters we see the glacier next door, a bunch of 6,000-meter peaks and the main Langtang peaks, but also the Tsurgo Ri. The tension is over on this wonderfully clear morning at Tsurgo Ri. The victory celebration in the evening was long and liquid. And now this even longer edges, a walk like hell always down. The way back from the mountain adventure leads down the whole Langtang Valley, but this time not only to the village, but from there further on via Giritabella to Rimch, the local hemp plantation capital at even only 2.450 meters. The tension is over on this wonderfully clear morning at Tsurgo Ri. The victory celebration in the evening was long and liquid. And now this even longer edges, a walk like hell always down. The way back from the mountain adventure leads down the whole Langtang Valley, but this time not only to the village, but from there further on via Giritabella to Rimch, the local hemp plantation capital at even only 2.450 meters. The big mountains are now behind the queue, in front is the valley, from which already more trekkers and heavily loaded porters are streaming upwards. The suggestion made by one member of the troop to build a railway line along the valley, which could be well used here, possibly points to increased creative power through hiking, but possibly also simply to a lack of oxygen. Anyway, fellow hikers find that such a railway would ruin the whole beautiful landscape. The landscape would then look like Austria, and what use is it to the trekker if his porter is replaced by a freight train? Oh no, we don't want to come back down from this cloud. In Rimch, the idyllic place with the wide bench facing the evening sun, St. Miguel beer, hey, we're Germans, is still complete gone. We drunked all the lager they have had at this one evening we stayed here a few days ago. But instead the cook of the house makes her vegetable pies, which are called pizza on the menu. And at the request of the burned-out guests she made it with a special topping made from the leftovers of the salami that has wandered in a trekker's backpack with us since the start of the tour. What a delicious taste! Continuing on familiar paths, even if the weakness of the ascent upsets the remembered order of lodges and many places. So first comes this, and then that. At the end of the route via Bamboo Lodge, the way goes back from the north to the south bank of the Langtang Kola. In the meantime it is raining again, but only because a typhoon is raging in India and is messing up the weather up to here. Because in the middle of October, the Sherpas say, it never rains. Down, down, like Bruce Springsteen sings in his tune I'm Going Down. And from the bottom of the valley of course up again, then along the shore to Siabrubasi. Shortly before the capital of the whole area, where there is even internet again, happy cows stand in the middle of endless hemp fields. Hashish and marijuana are almost common in Nepal, with Hinduism playing a role. This religion is known to be quite strange with the sadhus and everything, and it cultivates a relaxed approach to cannabis. Over us it is raining bubbles, but the cows are grinning. Smoking cows. At 1.450 meters at the last lodge, the cook offers toast for breakfast. But after counting the orders received he has to apologize, he only has 10 slices of it instead of 30 we need. At the evening we celebrate a disco with culture exchange at farewell. The Sherpas sing Rasham Pirari, a kind of earworm on Nepali, which nobody who has ever heard it can get rid of. From a trekker iPhone follows something from Metallica. The dance floor empties. Outside it's raining down. But here they have St. Miguel and even local Gorkha beer. Let's have another one. Civilization is slowly, but noticeably approaching. Anyone who has ever was shipwrecked with a small boat in white water and seen all the equipment floating down the river knows that everyone at such moments terrible curses let over the lips. Everything is shit, fuck, dirt all at once. And everything is wet, in the middle of the rain, cold, and the whole trip suddenly was an incredibly bad idea of some stupid idiots. That is even worse when it happens in Nepal, in the middle of a tiny village in the middle of the jungle, with no real road, no internet, and almost no telephone, while everyone already thinks after 10 days of hiking they are about to take a bath and eat something real good food. Forget it. Because on this morning, as the big hike should end with a relaxed bus ride back to the capital Kathmandu, a hurricane is approaching. It rains like a storm at the end of the world, water falls from the sky as if from a tap. A few mountains further on, this has consequences. A landslide brings down the flank of a hill, and the sliding masses spill over the road. The bus cannot get through, the pile of rubble is too high. And in the village there is no other means of transport to get over the 10 kilometers to the burglary site. It is a high Buddhist holiday. Even against giant money bids, there is no driver who is willing to leave his family behind for a few hours and drive the hiking group up to the place behind which the bus driver is waiting. Only after hours does a truck owner take pity on them. After everyone pleads and points out the still falling rain from everywhere, he even finds a tarpaulin to put over the heads of his expensive passengers like a grave cloth. Then the 100-year-old vehicle rumbles off. The travel group sits tightly packed on the loading area of the Nepalese truck, which is held together mainly by Buddhist paintings. Of course, the temporary tarpaulin leaks, there is no room to move. One of the Sherpas is driving in a car for the first time. He spits out the whole breakfast and is still green in the face afterwards. But on this rainy morning, the museum-ripe truck is the only possibility to get over freshly excavated earth on the path, which is called road here, to where a bus is waiting, which is hardly less museum-ripe but at least equipped with seats. Faces are clenched in a fist and gallows humor reigns. But this is exactly how one recognizes those days when a holiday becomes an event that will be remembered forever. Because at some point the destination is reached, 2 kilometers on foot over a freshly broken off hill, everything is full of mud, everyone is soaking wet, the sky is crying because the hiking group is leaving the Langtang area. Even the bus is leaking and the hotel is still unheated. But then finally the sleeping bag is dry again, somehow even the squeaking bus veteran hops to the finish. Shower. Real food. A Sherpa snaps on top. And suddenly, within hours, a mysterious transformation takes place, the disaster becomes an experience, the catastrophe a great, brave adventure. People are strange when you're a stranger, faces look ugly when you're alone, sink Jim Morrison of The Doors, and women seem wicked when you're unwanted, streets are uneven when you're down. He's right, and everyone who has ever come to a foreign country knows this feeling very well. Another city, another country, another continent. Different people, different faces, different eyes, a very different language. You don't understand a word that somebody said to you, and whoever has landed in Nepal can usually not even read what is written on signs along the road and on the menus of the restaurants. Everything is new, everything is unknown. The stranger who is a stranger in a foreign country cannot recognize the emotions of the people better than his own. An invisible wall stands between him and the passers-by, the waiters, the salesmen in the shops. Of course, you can speak English with everyone and some of them will hear what you say. But this kind of understanding is only a thin bridge over which only short sentences make it across. What you're feeling remains untold, at least until the new, unknown country opens up to the eye of the guest. The sadis and the real monks, the Sherpas, the cooks in the simple kitchens, the porters with the huge refrigerators on their backs, and the honey merchants, who are so reserved in advertising their goods as if they would prefer to keep them for themselves. They then get faces that can be read. There are the old women in an old people's home, sitting on a wall in silent dignity and looking so wise as if they really knew every secret the entire cosmos has to offer. The men next to them, who are not the men of these women, are smiling mischievously during a mysterious game of dice. They have small teacups in front of their faces, and when they all talk in disarray. There are no chairs in this country, everything happens on earth. And there is no business, no hidden agenda. It has doves, many doves. And apes who are stealing food. And much more humans of all colors. Policemen's. Bus drivers. Beggars. Those who beg openly, because it is their profession. Young soldiers who stand guard to guard a shrine do so with a display of boredom and weariness. Strangers on this road we are on / we are not two, we are one, rhymed Ray Davis of the Kinks in 1970, when some of the faces the visitor sees in Kathmandu of today were as young as those of the two cute girls, who are sitting in a niche and licking ice cream. Time has passed like a